Thank you very much, Johanna. Today's talk is about not Hollywood blockbusters, but about the crunch time and how not to. Thank you for the introduction. I also had an introduction about myself. Well, I am a self-taught 3D artist, a tutor, a trained character animator, and lately I've been doing project coordination and project management. And during the last 20 years of my life in the business, I did commercials, visualizations, interactive installations for museums, games, TV shows, and of course, at least, feature films as a character animator. So, during those times, working on projects, I've developed a theory about crunch time. Where does it come from? Where does it go? Why do we have crunch time? And I named it the good, the bad, and the ugly. Those are the three different versions of crunch time I experience. So just to be all on the same page here, what is crunch time? And the definition is it's a critical part of your project where you usually work really hard and fast, and it happens towards your deadline. So when a deadline occurs and you're close to your deadline and you know you have only little time left but lots of work to do, and you work really fast. So we go into overdrive, we become very, very productive. We deal with problems in an instant, problems that would have taken us days before. We solve them very creatively. And in the end, you usually make the deadline because it is very important that you succeed. Your reputation is at stake. You have to finish. It's not only the quality of your time, but it's also your reliability as a co-worker, as a team, or as a company to deliver on time. So let's take a look at those three versions of crunch time. The first version of crunch time I experience is the creativity trap. And I think all of us know the creativity trap. It's when you are so focused on the details of your work that you sometimes forget about the bigger picture. Happens to me all the time, and I know a lot of people who really love their work in the industry, and it happens to them all the time too. You get super excited, you're ambitious, you work really hard to deliver outstanding results, and you simply forget about the deadline. And you put in extra hours, and in the end, when the deadline comes, you have to make up for the time you put into the details at first and succeed in the end. And I think this is the version of creativity deadline that is okay with us, because it makes us do outstanding work. It makes us produce, like outstanding work. Like I said, the extra time is well spent, we put in there. Another version is the structural failure. And this is when your pipeline fails you and you spend a lot of time putting out fires instead of being productive. There's an example I had when I was working in Frankfurt at Pixelmondo, and this was the film we talked about. It was Super 8, Hollywood production, and Pixelmondo is a really big company doing special effects on several films like Iron Man, and lately they did the dragons in Game of Thrones. They didn't have a proper pipeline at the time. They only had a really nice structure of folders on their server, and we were working there, and all of a sudden work came to a complete stop. Nobody could save files anymore, nobody could open files, referenced files vanished, and in the back of the office we heard a silent uh-oh. So somebody tried to make an alias of the folder from the server on his desktop, and instead he moved the complete project folder from the server onto his desktop. We had to wait for hours because this was gigabyte of data going over there. The whole network slowed down. We weren't sure about the backup, so we could interfere with this movement. We had to wait for hours and then work through the night because we had to deliver next day. There was a video conference with J.J. Abrams. We had to deliver. No way to do otherwise. We had to work through the night. So this is when the pipeline fails you. And then there is another version, the really ugly one, when everybody is clueless. And this is a misunderstanding of production reality and project planning. Happens all the time, more often than you think. I joined a project where the goal was to produce a short film, a motion ride. You know, motion ride is where all the seats move according to what you see on the screen in front of you. That's a motion ride. They wanted to do a production of a motion ride. It's 10 minutes of film. And first of all, they wanted to do a trailer for that, or a teaser. And they joined the first meeting, and they were discussing the design of the street lamps in the suburban area. And just out of curiosity, I asked them, what's actually happening in this shot? And they said, well, there's a big thunderstorm going on, and it's heavy rain, and there's even a tornado, and we follow the characters who are flying through the clouds. And there's shit flying around because there's a tornado. And I asked them, okay, let me recap, if I understand you correctly. We are hundreds of meters above the ground, in the clouds, the camera is shaky, everything is blurry, we are following the characters, there's clouds, there's heavy rain, and we're discussing the design of the street lamps down there. So I had a few extra questions, and it came out that they didn't have a proper storyline, they had no storyboard, they had no animatic, they didn't think about all the special effects for a thunderstorm and the rain. They had nothing, and they wanted to be done in 2 months. That's ugly. We made it in 4, but it was no fun. So this is the really ugly version of something like a project you don't want to be in. So let's recap. What do we have? We have the creativity trap, the good one, the structural failure, the pipeline, and somebody is completely clueless. And when you work at projects, there's always a collection of that. You usually have the creativity trap, the structural failure hits you from time to time into the face, and you always meet an area where nobody has an idea what he's doing. So you try to cope with those things, and you start to cope on your own, first of all. And then there are other things the studio actually has to provide for you so that you can work and have a free place to work, to be creative and not think about all the things in the background. So how do I beat the creativity trap? And that's so simple, I actually didn't even want to mention it. But it works every time with the cunning use of Postits. And that's so easy, you can always implement it. Actually, a few guys of me are here today who use those, and it works. I assume that you already have a deadline, a schedule, and you have already agreed on tasks, what to do. When you have that, you only have to hand out those tasks. And you hand it out to a certain person, and this person writes down his name, the task, ID, number, or just the name of the task, and adds the time when he wants to be finished. That's all. And then you take this little sticky note and put it either very visible for everybody on the board, or you put it on your own desk, if you're the coordinator or in charge. Works wonders. It builds dedication for the one who writes down what he has to do. It is a mini deadline for everybody, and it's easier to focus on what you're doing because you have this little post-it. And in addition to that, it sometimes helps you to point out misunderstandings, because if somebody only has to do a red cube over there and it takes him for 2 days and he says, well, I will be done by tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, you look at him and say, oh, that is only a red cube over there, that's all you have to do. So then you can discuss why he thinks it takes 2 days for a red cube. Maybe he has to learn the 3D program at first. That's a good one, but even then you can do it in 2 hours. So you can discuss what's going on if somebody has a complete different understanding of his task than you have. Easy. Then we have the structural failure, and this is actually, this goes back to the studio. The studio has to provide some kind of pipeline for you to work, but still you can do it with procedures. But at first, you have to eliminate risks. And there's this basic risk, I don't know the times I have to mention that, but please have a backup. Have a backup of your data. That's super important. And the backup that works, please see if it works. And then establish processes. And processes is as simple as writing an Excel sheet. What do I have to do to have a constant outcome of a proper result I want to have? Write your Excel sheets. Another simple thing of a process is how you hand over work. You know, the next guy who has to start with what you produced, how is the interface? How do you hand it over so that the next guy doesn't have to come to you and ask you, and if you're on holiday can't stop, keep on working. It's a simple process. And if you have those processes and collect them, and all of them are stable, you result in a pipeline. Actually, it's that easy. You only have to do it. There are, of course, especially for CG projects, I know pipeline software. For example, there's Shotgun or Alien Brain. If you want to use it, implement it early, because you will have to do development on it. It doesn't work out of the box. You will have to develop your own features for it and adjust it to your own workflow. So please start early with it, and not only if you're given the Hollywood project or the big AAA game, it's too late. It takes months or even longer than that. And then we have the last one. If everything is out of control and everybody is completely clueless, and nobody has really a grip on production reality, and there is no project planning, you have to start from scratch. Please look into project planning. Avoid the classical approach of project planning, even though there is a lot of information there. If you do it like that, that's not flexible enough for us, because we are too creative and we have to change directions too often. At least look at Kanban or Scrum, or use Postits, works too. Have tools of information, or in short, have a wiki where you write down your know-how, so you can hand it over if somebody new comes to the company. Look at page number 3. There's a good place to look what we don't have the time to tell you. Tools of communication. I think there are still companies using email as tool of communication, and that's not okay. I just wanted to say it's shit, but yeah, it's shit. Don't use email as communication, because you delete emails, or you have a folder through with 10,000s of emails, have to find something. There are other means of communication. For example, there is something like Slack, or there is Basecamp. You can collect all the information there. Everybody can take a look at it. Everybody knows where the rest of the team is. You can read through if you drink your coffee or you just don't want to do your work. Especially if you work with remote workers, if it's online, that's super easy. Everybody writes down. You can give tasks with that. Have a tool of communication that has a history where you can read what happened last week. have tools of task management, of course, and there are several tools. An Excel sheet will do fine, but you also can look into Jira, Asana, Redmine, tons of task management tools out there. Google Docs is another one, works really well. And yeah, put seniors in key positions so at least somebody knows what the rest of the team should be doing. And last but not least, handle your client, because all of what I told you right now is that you are yourself are responsible that your project is running well. And of course there are outside factors, and one of your outside factors is your client. You actually could put it under risk management, because I can't tell you the number of times a client changed his mind in the middle of a project. Like he hands you this little precious idea, like a small puppy, like a small dog, and he wants to have a small dog, a wiener dog. He wants you to produce a wiener dog, right? And in the middle of the project, he realizes, actually I want a big dog. I want a glorious German Shepherd. Do it. And only thing you can do with limited time and budget is put your little wiener dog on stilts, and that should do. Can't do anything more than that. Thank you very much for your attention, and we'll go to Q&As.
I think we have time for one or two very, very quick questions and very quick answers. Is there a question? I lost my...
No worries. Thank you.
According to the good crunch time, what we realized was kind of that we put too much time in the beginning into some task and made something really, really beautiful, which not only took away time from later on tasks, but also set a higher standard that we had to keep for all other tasks, which actually exploded tasks which should have been simpler. So that actually grows exponentially with the time you spend into it. Which did you find any way to smooth that in, to lower the quality slowly over time again on the rest of the project? Or but this is always a discussion for us that we build a track and then, oh my god, now all the tracks have to look like that. All our levels have to look like that because we made this too detailed and we can't change this anymore.
Lower your expectations on yourself and stick to it, and if you have time left, improve it. Because the worst thing, and you probably realize, if you start really, really good, you have to keep that level. Start low, keep that level, nobody will notice, because then it's a feature and not a bug. So you start really, really high, and then you have to melt it down. Yeah. Actually it works, it even works, I know it from animated films, if you have a really basic simple animation style and you make it all through the movie, it works. You just have to stick to it.
Thank you so much for the wonderful talk. Thank
you. One final thing, if anybody wants to, right now I'm working on a really nice project, and if anybody wants to join, we really need Unity developers, and they can talk to Michi over there. Stand up, Michi, thank you very much. He will be the person to talk to, because unfortunately I will have to leave right away. My car is standing outside with running engine. I have to join something else, somewhere else, another party. But thank you very much for attending. Bye.